Well, it looks like I'm live. I'm trying to make sure I have audio. Let me see what I got here. If anyone is on, if you could say something, that would be great, or type something. Sorry. Obviously, you can't say anything right now. Let's see. Oh, awesome. Thank you, Gabriel. I appreciate it. Right. Well, I'm kind of caught everyone off guard, so I'm sure folks will kind of jump in here. Thank you very much for that. Well, cool. Good afternoon or good morning, depending on what part of the world you are. I have followers, which I did not realize until recently, in Spain, Argentina, Peru. I've been trying to do some bilingual postings, so it's been cool meeting folks who are trying to be aware of what's going on all over the world. Because as different as it is, we all kind of worry about the same thing, and it's interesting seeing different people's the way they look at stuff. So in any case, this was a surprise video because today we are going to cover a few things about hurricane season. I received a text from the other side of Texas, Harris County Emergency Management, saying that there was a potential heavy rainfall and tropical storm headed to the Houston metro area. And as I look, it actually is showing drenching rain. So the Houston area, the Gulf Coast, has a bit of a problem because right now they've been getting rained on for weeks. New Orleans, everything from Corpus to New Orleans is getting rained on. Everything's full flooded, the ground's saturated, and now they have this rainmaker. It's probably not going to become a hurricane, but it's just going to kind of sit and pee on the Houston area, and then it's going to hit everyone to the west. So Beaumont, all the way out possibly to Baton Rouge, is kind of a lopsided system. So it's going to wind up really causing a lot of flooding issues. So I went to look at that and then found another article stating that they've ordered evacuations in Iberville Parish, just south of Baton Rouge, uh, because the dam has failed. And then they put the aqua dam, that inflatable barrier, and that failed also. It leaked or something happened. So now they're trying to evacuate a town, and Louisiana has been hit by rainfall, according to this local weather service in South Louisiana. Heavy rainfall and deadly flooding. So they've already gotten 15 inches in Baton Rouge and Houston and New Orleans, and have had 5 deaths. And now they've got this rainmaker headed that way. So if you're on the Gulf Coast, do you have family and loved ones on the Gulf Coast? Tell them to pay attention, fill up your tanks, and stay home. Uh, that's going to be a big pain in the butt to everyone. So what I wanted to cover today, and it'll be a Q&A, so if you have a question that pops up, throw it on the screen and I'll try and answer them, is how exactly does it work when we have these hurricanes and they clobber some area? People know, they say, well, FEMA and the Guard and all these people do stuff, but nobody really knows how it works. And I wound up having to go through a boatload of FEMA classes for my MEMS qual a few years back, and so I got a lot of insight. And then I wound up deploying with these cats, so I got some insights. And I think, knowing what I know now, I realize I can see mistakes that happened back in like Katrina and what we learned from stuff like that. So the way FEMA uses an integrated command system, and they call it ICS: firefighters, cops, guardsmen, FEMA, Red Cross, all these organizations that you would see out in an emergency all take these same courses. As a civilian, you can actually go on the FEMA website and download books or little pamphlets and see videos on how it works from the civilian level, which is actually very useful to people. But emergency response, the integrated command systems, always start local. So if, for instance, this storm hits Corpus Christi or it hits Houston, it's going to be the the county commissioner, the judge of that county. Typically in Texas, it's the judge. In Louisiana, I think the parish, which is what they call their counties, have a designated person who's in charge of coordinating this. I'm not sure if it's the judge over there or they have an emergency commissioner. But these folks will start locally, and it'll start at the town level and then into the county level. So help won't arrive from the next level up if the first level doesn't ask for help. So if the town, like what happened in Port Arthur during Harvey, they got devastated. They knew they were going to be in trouble, so they put out a preemptive request for help from the county. The county preemptively asked the state, and then the state preemptively asked the Fed, which is why, as bad as Harvey was, you noticed people were out there. They were on top of it. They had 4,000 National Guardsmen in San Antonio, another four in Dallas. FEMA and DTMS, which is disaster or DMTS, disaster medical disaster tactical medical services or something like that. I can't remember. Um, all these groups of doctors, volunteers, the Red Cross, they were already staged. As soon as the first wave of Harvey hit and the flood surge broke, they started moving into position. Some were already there. But then it goes from local to county and then county to state. And usually at that point, the state, if they're on their game, will already have hit the feds up and say, hey, we may need help. A lot of states have reciprocity agreements with the adjacent state. So Louisiana, Texas, Oklahoma, Alabama, right across the Gulf Coast, they all have agreements. So during Katrina, actually, one of my former teammates, his entire company wound up going to New Orleans after the Louisiana and the Tennessee National Guard were in place. They wound up, and Katrina was really bad timing too, because the three big National Guard units around New Orleans were all in Iraq, and then the hurricane hit. And those guys' families were there, but they were overseas, so they had to pull people from Tennessee, and that's why it was such a mess. They waited too long to start the things rolling. So normally after the county mayor or the city mayor asks the county judge will call the governor. The governor will then be the one to initiate National Guard and any other emergency response. They'll also call adjacent towns. So, for instance, during Harvey, Midland, Texas, El Paso, Brownsville, Dallas, Amarillo, they all had firefighters, extra people standing by, and as soon as they got the call, they put them on the road. They had also requested power line assistance from Alabama, Georgia, all the way up the coast. So trucks were coming down from as far as Pennsylvania to repair power lines. Once it hits the federal level, that's when you start seeing the full-blown FEMA, the big Red Cross presence. And it's not uncommon to see them all mixed up. Sometimes they'll form what they call a TOC, a Tactical Operations Center, locally, and then an Emergency Operations Center somewhere else. And they'll sometimes do it on the fly. Some, a guardsman or Red Cross may show up expecting to go to this county, and they say, nope, we're good there, but these guys just had a dam break, and they go the other way. So understand that there's a delay between when the hurricanes hit, a tornado, they come out of nowhere. Hurricanes, at least you kind of see them coming. Tornadoes, flash floods, stuff like that. There's a delay between when the incident occurs and when emergency response will take place outside of just the local. So again, for Harvey, it was a big storm. Everyone was kind of watching it. You get a tornado, like has happened in Oklahoma, they have no idea what's happening. It just wham, it hits them. And so the National Guard may not show up for a week. It's not that they're not on their game. Keep in mind, National Guard folks, they have families, they have jobs. So now their commanders are on the phone trying to call the sergeants and the officers to call the soldiers or the airmen to get them into the base, to get their gear, and that whole process. Um, I was part of a engineering QRF, which was a quick reaction force for emergencies. And even then, and we were, some of our guys could deploy fast. They didn't have kids at home. They were semi-retired, so they were available. Still took 48, 72 hours to get boots on the ground. And that's just advanced elements. And they're assessing buildings, looking at water plants. So it's important that you be prepared personally to get through that 72-hour to 7-day window, because no matter who they call up, it's going to take them a while to get to where you need them. Plus, if roads are flooded, bridges get screwed up, um, they may be on the way and get rerouted, and it'll screw up the response. So it's important, make sure at a minimum you have 72 hours of goodies. That'll give you some time to kind of see how the storm plays out, especially a hurricane, see how it plays out, see how bad it is before you get on the road. Also, don't be on the road if you don't have to. If you got to get groceries after between storm surges or between rain bursts, do what you got to do. Get meds, get food if you can, but stay off the roads, because if you get stuck on the road, now a police officer or fire truck or a Humvee has to stop what they're doing because you're stuck. And they're not going to leave you there. They're going to be driving by. They're going to stop and try and help you. Um, on I-10 on the west side of Houston, I actually saw two Humvees up to the roof in water because they tried to help a cop. And I actually saw the police cars. There's two Humvees, a police car, and then a bunch of other vehicles. People got stuck because they didn't listen to the get off the road order. The cop tried to help them. His car got flooded. And then the Humvees came to help the cop with the civilians. The truck got out and the Humvees got stuck, and then they got flooded. So don't be the guy who or the girl who gets people in danger, right? Stay off the roads if you can. Obviously, if your house is flooding, there's a snake in your house, some weird emergency, you may have to get out and go. And if you do, do what you got to do. Grab your bug out bag, your get home bag, whatever you can, and get out. So remember, there's going to be a lag. You'll see the first responders out there because they're local. You may not see National Guard, FEMA, Red Cross for 72 hours minimum, sometimes 4 days, 5 days, if they have not been pre-alerted. So don't take that chance. Have your meds, have your stuff in order. Even if you're not sure the storm will hit, make photocopies or scan your important papers. I have a video on the bug out book. I actually still have it. I haven't consolidated the 3 books into one yet. Have hard copies of your stuff, because if cell phones go out, you're not going to be able to access the cloud. If your cell phone dies, you can't show anyone paperwork. Make sure you have some hard copies around. Put them in a Ziploc if you have to, just so you have them. So I'm going to jump now to what I've seen in the hurricanes. And as I've said in the intro, I've been through 8, 9 hurricanes. I was deployed for 1 hurricane and a flood. But the family, so I've been on both sides as a responder and as the person in the actual hurricane. And actually, that last deployment, I was actually in the affected area. So we were the last guys to get called because we had like garbage all over our yards and guys' roofs collapsed. So we were taking care of us, and then those of us who could kind of step out jumped out. But what have I seen with hurricanes? Once you get winds over 40, 50 miles an hour, you're looking at power lines, mainly trees, hitting transformers and power lines and blowing them out. That has been the biggest culprit. So if you have large trees on your property that are near your incoming power lines, I would recommend maybe you not go and trim them, but call the power company. They have specialized crews to come and trim the trees at your request if you need them, because it's in their interest not to have stuff blow out either. But I would avoid having trees near the power lines coming in. because that's been the biggest culprit every single freaking time. It's the branches or some garbage hits the transformers, the lines, they short, and boom, there goes a whole block. Um, so that's important. Also, gas. Once the power's out, you can't get gas. So, and people tend to panic just before. So if you see a hurricane and you're not sure it's going to hit you, but there's a good chance, fill up those 5 gallons. Just get 2 or 3 of them. The worst case, if you don't need them, you can use them in your lawnmower or put them in your car after the storm. But don't wait till the last minute, because that's when everyone else goes and they freak out. Now, remember, gasoline does have a shelf life. You need to add a stabilizer to it if you're going to hold them for more than, I believe, 6 months, or it's going to look like crap. It starts to decay because it is an organic compound. Petroleum comes from decayed organic matter, so it will decompose over time if and become unusable if you don't put a preservative. But most of us don't have a long-term gas storage, right? You're going to fill up the red cans before. And please, whatever you do, do not put them in a freaking trash bag or Tupperware. The stuff we saw with the pipeline hack, don't do that. You will literally kill yourself. A spark goes off in your car, and your car will become a Roman candle. So don't do that. Um, but anyway, what I've seen going back, power goes out, then typically you can't get gas. The gas stations that are running and still have gas, they're going to put a bag on their pump and say they're out of gas. That is done on purpose because they're going to preserve their gas for the first responders, the cops, the guardsmen, the firefighters, medical personnel going to and from. I know this because during the storm, I actually stopped at a gas station and the guy was like, sorry, no gas. And but I had pulled up in uniform and he was telling other people no gas, and he saw me and he kind of went, you come here. So I walked over to him and he said, I can fill you up, let these guys go. The sheriff told me first responders, military, medical only. So they're not being a-holes, they're just trying to make sure that the people helping the ones in need have fuel. So again, they're going to restrict you. And if you make a scene at the gas station, then you're going to get an MP or a cop show up, and then you're going to be in trouble. Get the gas ahead, avoid the problem, and that way you don't have to be on the road with the flooding. And speaking of flooding, that's the third thing I see a lot of is the flooding. Especially on the Gulf Coast, the ground will absorb a lot of water. It will flood quickly and it'll drain quickly. The problem is, normally it will absorb a lot before it starts to flood, but because the Gulf Coast recently has had so much rain, the ground is saturated. There's nowhere for the water to go. So you're going to wind up having the water's going to hit the ground. It's not going to be able to go into the earth. And if it hits any kind of concrete, it's just going to accumulate. And sadly, Houston is notoriously overpaved, and you're just going to get a lot of flooding. I'm quite confident most of the levees and bayous that were flooded during the previous hurricanes have not fully been cleaned yet. So again, flooding. So power, gas shortages, or availability and flooding are going to be the three big things you're going to see, and they're going to happen very quickly, one behind the other. On that note, if you don't prepare in advance, right, you don't have the gas, you don't have food, it's going to force you to get into the car. We had more people die in Harvey because of flooding or electrocution, mainly flooding in the car. Let me correct myself, dying in a car that got swept away, than any other reason, than snake bites, than fighting, than looting, nothing. It was relatively quiet in that respect. We had a lot of people, including a police officer, who's trying again help someone else, and both of them died because the car he was trying to pull out dragged his car in. I don't remember exactly the details. Both the officer and the civilian wound up in the water, and neither came up. And it was a loss of life. He was a rescue trained guy too, but he was trying to get the job done, and it cost him his life. So stay off the roads if you get flooding. And this is just not for this storm, which should hopefully go through quickly. But if you get a major hurricane or any kind of flooding, even later in the year, in the middle of the continent, you get the flooding, stay off the roads. The better prepared you are, the better off you're going to be. Um, so what do, right? You're stuck at home. There'll be no power, no gas. So there are a lot of things you can do, and a lot of them economically, to prepare you for going to deal with this kind of situation. So first of all, make sure you have lighting. Flashlights are cheap. You don't have to get super expensive ones. I mean, if you want them, that's great, but you don't have to break the bank. Go to the Dollar General, go to Walmart, and get the 5-pack of the stupid lights. I would recommend at least a couple that are camping type, that are waterproof or will float in water, because you're probably going to drop one in the water. At a minimum, have lighting, have bug spray. If you're on the Gulf Coast, the bugs will come out and they'll start biting people, and you don't want that. Um, Also, make sure you have food. Canned food is great. Uh, Also, MREs, stuff like that, dehydrated foods. If you have a camping stove, that's great. But typically, within 3-4 days, roads will start to clear, and hopefully you can get out. But if it goes on longer, you may be stuck in your house for a bit. Uh, Make sure you have food suitable. I would recommend, if you want to have something that's very shelf stable, and because people eat up all the bread, right? They just take the bread. Go to the frozen food section and get the Pillsbury, the frozen tube that you whack and it pops real loud, and you bake biscuits and bread and Italian loaves and stuff. Get those. Don't put them in your freezer. Bake them. Make them right away. And if you have kids, that's a great opportunity to do something with the kids, so they don't get scared. They don't get traumatized by the storm. They feel like they're doing something. And that's important. I had 3 little kids during Hurricane Ike, and all of them, the oldest was 12, and then they were 8 and 6, right? They were young kids. And they had a blast. We had no power for 16 days, guys. 16 days. We had water. You could shower in it, but, no power. But all the kids were in scouts, including the girl, and they had a blast because I included them. So make sure, have the kids help you pick the flashlights, have them count the batteries, have them find the bug spray, bake that food ahead of time, throw it in the oven while you still have power, bake it, and then put it in a Ziploc or put it in wrapping paper, not wrapping paper, parchment paper, like for bread, and just leave it on the counter. Unless you get bugs in there, the bread, once it's cooked, is going to be good for 4 or 5 days. It's a great snack, and if it gets stale, you can give it to the dogs. Dogs love it for some reason. It's probably not good for them, but they do like it. Um, Also, if you cannot find water at the store, don't panic. There are a couple other things you can do. One, go to the store and buy the Kool-Aid containers, the pitchers where you'd make Kool-Aid or lemonade. Wash it, fill it with tap water. It's not Avion, but it's drinkable. So get that. And very important, make sure you put aside water to flush your toilets. If your water goes out, you can still flush in most cases if you're on a city line or if you have a septic tank, but you cannot flush if you have no water. So get a 5-gallon bucket of just tap water. Hell, you can even put it out and fill it with rainwater. Who cares? It's getting flushed down the toilet. Don't drink the rainwater without filtering it. You can use it for the potty. My daughter, during the Texas power outage, her and the boyfriend had water, food. They had everything they needed, and they forgot flushing water. So they didn't have enough water to flush the toilet in the apartment. She said that got kind of raunchy after about 2 days. Lesson learned. The kids are smart now. They have a whole, that big water cube for flushing and for cooking. So again, use your tap water. Don't freak out if you go to the store and don't find bottled water. If you insist on a bottle, buy the crappy soda that they sell at HEB or Walmart for 50 cents. Throw the soda out because it sucks. It's not good for you. At least that stuff isn't. Put some Dawn in there, rinse out the bottle, fill it with water. That's, a couple of those is a gallon of water. You can get a bunch of those cheap, At the end, go recycle them if you don't need them anymore. Um, Typically, the power will start coming back on within the week. Again, in my case, we were low in the priority chain, so we were 16 days with no power. That was a lot. No AC. It got hot in Texas. But things you do, make sure the lighting, I'm going to go over them again. Make sure you have the lighting, bug spray and first aid kit. Uh, make your food ready. And most importantly, fuel up your car, but stay off the road unless you absolutely need to go. Because if you get in a wreck, you're going to screw everyone else up. And then don't forget a radio. You don't have to have a fancy ham radio, just an AM FM radio so you can listen to what's going on. Most of the local radio stations in any town or city will have backup generators, and if nothing else, the local police or the local fire department have an AM channel that they're going to broadcast off of, even in the small towns. If you live near a military base, they have all sorts of goodies, and they'll be transmitting emergency alerts for the public. But if you're out in the country like I am, not a big deal. So you got these storms coming. Hurricane season officially starts the 1st of June. They're saying it may not be as active this year as it was last year, but you still could wind up with a lot of heavy rainmakers, and you could get a couple of really strong ones. So prep up again. If you're starting and you're new to preparedness, you're new to getting ready, work on the 72 hours, 3 days. If you go buy green beans, get 2 extra cans. You go buy pasta, get 2 extra boxes, and put those in a separate thing. I actually know some folks have a Tupperware, and they call it the hurricane Tupperware or hurricane box. Everything goes in there. Make copies of your papers, especially shot records, or if you require meds, make sure you have copies of your scripts if you can get them. If you don't have the medicine, at least have that. So if you have to go to a pharmacy and their computer is down, you can at least hand it over the counter. They may be able to fill the script for you. In any case, this storm should be hitting. Okay, this storm should be hitting. It doesn't say. That's kind of useless. Here we go. Oh, well, Iberville Parish is already evacuating now. So the storm must be getting close. And yeah, this storm should hit in the next 24 hours. Here it is. Heavy rainfall potential for great amounts of flooding in southeast Texas. And it is defined as Invest 91L. That's the official name. And they're expecting it to roll into town. They just put out the 1 p.m. update. It'll be in the next 24 to 48 hours. So it's going to hit during the weekend. Take some time, go to the store now. Just get enough for 3 days. It's not going to be a major storm. They're giving it 40% chance of making hurricane, but it's going to be a messy one. It's going to leave a lot of rain for you. Take the time, relax. You got this. If you have any questions, you can leave them on the live chat or you can leave them in the comments. You can also find my other video. I have bug out books, the basic bug out bag. I did have a fellow guardsman had to evacuate in waist deep water in downtown Houston, and he did have a bug out bag. He actually had his deployment bag. His wife had like a little oh shit kit, she called it. I don't know. She came up with the name. I thought it was funny. And they used their kayaks to put their bags on and then walk the kayaks out of the floodwater and then drag the kayaks to a dry area. So hopefully you guys don't get that, but make sure you have what you need. Take some time. Leave any comments or questions. If you're a little confused about something I said, feel free to let me know. I do this really to help folks out because I always get questions about, what did you do here? What did you see? Because I've seen a lot of bizarre stuff. And this is a way for me to, help the community and hopefully save somebody from a lot of pain. In any case, God bless and Godspeed to those of you on the road. If you're traveling, don't travel through Southeast Texas and South Louisiana right now. Avoid that. Go somewhere else if you can avoid it. Otherwise, you may have to make a bug out bag on the fly while you're in the airport. In any case, this is a roaming prepper. Thank you for coming and checking it out. Be safe out there, and I will see you next week. Bye, guys.